Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are. I'm excited that you decided to join me here in the bomb shelter. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you put this on pause, go to all of our platforms, Stitcher, go to Google Play, go to all the platforms and leave us a comment. We want to hear from you. It really helps our listeners enjoy to engage the show. So before we get started, I need you to go there, leave a comment, let us know what you're thinking. You guys have been doing a great job with that. So again, thank you, Sound Bombing community, for joining me today. This is your man, Dr. Lamar Darnell Shields, in the building for another exciting edition of Sound Bombing. Last week we had an amazing guest on the show. She was very enlightening. She took me through some breathing exercise. Miss Osepian was amazing. She comes from Russia. She talked about being in Russia and then also learning some things about herself there and then coming over to this country. So I'm so grateful for that. Man, I hope you all are okay. I am excited. Hopefully you are still physically distancing yourself from individuals because we don't want the COVID to attack any more people. Shout out to all of our folks who are on the front line, our law enforcement, our EMT workers, our doctors, but to the best superheroes out there that don't get a lot of credit. And believe me, the credit is going to come when school starts in August and in September. Shout out to those amazing teachers who are miracle workers, who are doing an amazing job engaging young people. We know that some people are not going back to school. A lot of people are going to do some hybrid work. But thank you to my amazing teachers. I love you. I love you. I love you. And so if you are new to the Sound Bombing community, welcome. You are at the right place with the right time, with the right people. If you are old here, if you're an old head, if you've been a part of the community before, thank you for coming back. And I'm sure you are already getting set because we always get started with our three breaths. Our three breaths, we call them the breath of life. So what I want you all to do is I want you to get in a comfortable position. I want you to put your feet on the floor, palms facing up. I want you to roll your shoulders back, and I want you to slowly, softly close your eyes, tongue at the roof of your mouth slightly open as we are getting prepared to do our work. I always tell people, meditation is easy. It is simple, but it's not easy. Let me say it again. Meditation is simple, but it is not easy. But the bombing community, you've gotten used to this. This is how we start our day. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Eyes closed. Everything is soft. We're going to take a couple of breaths. So we're going to take a deep breath. Inhale. We're going to hold it for 3 seconds. And then exhale. 2 more times. Inhale. Hold it for 3 seconds. Exhale. This time we're going to go a little deeper. Inhale. Hold it 5 seconds. Exhale. What is that called? That is called the breath of life. And what that says is that you are here and we're excited that you're joining us today. So if you don't know, I always start out with a question because I love questions. And here we go with the first question. What does enlightenment feel like? That's a question that people have asked for thousands of years. It's human nature to want to know the meaning of life or feel connected to something greater than ourselves. To really understand what enlightenment is, you have to dig deep into your psyche. You may remember from psychology class that your psyche is made up of the ego. But Dr. Wayne Dyer says to me, he taught me this, that the ego is to edge God out, to push God out, the ID or the superego. This is the ID, the id, this is the tribal and reactive part of the psyche. The superego serves as your moral compass, and your ego straddles the two. The ego's primary job is to protect you. You hear that? Sometimes it says to protect you. Sometimes it says to hold you back. Sometimes it pushes you. The ego is a part of that tells you that you can't, that you have to fear everything. And we know from our last guest that they said fear is false evidence as appearing as real. It doesn't even exist, but it holds us and puts this chokehold around us. You know, an ego or a fear says that you are a loser, that you are a failure, that you're fat, that you're no good, that you're black, that you're ugly, you're weak, you're lazy because you speak a different language, because your parents aren't around. All of those things the ego pushes in, and sometimes they call you a failure. But we all have those horrible voices within us. I know I hear them time and time again, and that's the ego doing its job, which is to keep us safe. But that's why we work so hard to attain goals. But there's always something getting in our way, or someone getting in our way. Philosophy, psychology, and religion all talk about getting past the ego to reach your true self. But what is the true self? That place within your true self is where love resides. That's true love, love for yourself and love for the world around you. Love for this shirt that we call, the word on it says Ubuntu, that comes out of South Africa. I am because we are. That's contentment. So are you ready to know more about what enlightenment is? Let me hear it. Are you ready to know more what about enlightenment is and what it feels like? Because our next guest, Matthew Ferry, will tell us how we can gain access to the realms of reality that transcend time and space and culture. Sounds like a Stevie Wonder song, doesn't it? An individual identity to reach enlightenment prosperity. Who am I talking about? I said his name, people, but let me let you know who else he is, who he is and what he does. He's a master life coach, a spiritual teacher, best-selling author. He's been thriving as a thriving executive life coach and spiritual teacher for over 26 years. He has coached thousands of people. His books, videos, audios, and seminars utilize a street-tested methodology called the Rapid Enlightenment Process, TM. Among his many projects, Matthew manages and blogs, hosts podcast Daily Enlightenment. He spreads his message all over the world. You might have seen him on YouTube. You might have seen him, his writing on Amazon. He's a self-help spiritual teacher. But what's cool is he's with us right now. He's in the sound bombing community. Matthew Ferry, welcome to the show. How are you, brother?
I am doing well. Thank you for that great intro. Glad to be here.
Hey, let our listeners know where you are broadcasting from.
I am chilling here in Orange County, California, in a wonderful little town called Aliso Viejo.
Did you hear my man said chilling in California? You all know how much I love Cali. I'm typically in Palo Alto, also working in Palm Springs, the LA area, Pasadena. Love that area, but haven't been out there in a while, Matt, because COVID has shut a lot of us down. So I send you some virtual hugs and high fives across the waves. How are you doing physically, man, with the COVID pandemic?
Well, it turns out that my wife and business partner, Kristen, and I, we live in lockdown already. So we already work at home and spend most of our time here hanging with our family. So it hasn't impacted us that much.
Well, I am glad that you decided to hang out with me, man. You could have been anywhere, but your message is a message that resonates not only with me, but the listeners that log on to my site or log on to the show who are looking for some deep answers, and they're asking themselves deep questions. My friend and mentor, Pedro Noguero, who's at UCLA, who I love and respect, he always says when you ask different questions, you have to expect different answers. And so we know life is about asking the deep questions. And since my engineer and my producer has done so much research on, they said, you got a lot of answers, bro. So I brought you into the studio, and hopefully you can answer these questions, because my listeners sent in a lot of questions. But let's talk about quieting the mind. What is a quiet mind, and why is it important?
Well, a quiet mind is important because when you're in the present moment, that means that you're essentially free from stress and worry and fear and concern, and that's a big deal. Because according to the American Institute of Stress, 73% of Americans say they deal with stress on a regular basis. But I think, Lamar, if we're being honest right now, I would say probably 99% of Americans are dealing with some stress right now. It's pretty bad out there. And that's bad news for all of us, because when you are experiencing that psychological stress, you don't make very good decisions and you don't see things clearly. It's harder to be around you. Your creativity is diminished. Your energy is zapped. And if you're going to achieve your goals, if you're going to become the full version of yourself, if you want to live what I call an epic life, then you want the best version of you influencing every aspect of your life. And that happens when your mind is quiet.
I love it. Hold on for 1 second, man. I got to shift something. There we go. That's much better. So, Matt, you alluded to a word, epic. What is an epic life, and what does that entail? And how can someone, the average person, strive towards an epic life?
Well, everybody has their own version of what an epic life is. There's no actual definition. In America, we've adopted a very materialistic way of thinking about our world, and there's nothing wrong with that. So if you want to include some materialistic actions in your life, like nice house or car or the job or whatever, that's a part of your epic life. If you are a mother and you want to make sure that you're raising your children in a way that you're proud of, that you're excited about, then that's an epic life. It really doesn't matter. It comes down to what makes you feel like you're satisfied, lit up, energized, excited about the world that you're in. That's an epic life. And when your mind is quiet, you remove all of the judgments. You remove all of the illogical rules and the standards that don't exist. And you're able to connect with that deepest part of yourself and recognize, oh, like this is the stuff that I like. I'm going to focus on this, and I don't really care what anyone else has to say.
So what was the impetus for you to start this journey of enlightenment, in search of an epic mind? In search of a quiet mind and an epic life. Talk to me about your personal journey.
For me personally, it started when I was 9 years old. And I had several experiences, Lamar, where I felt like I was floating out of my body. I didn't understand what it was, but I will tell you that it was profoundly peaceful. And the experience was so powerful that as an adult, I was driven to find a predictable path. How do I get back to that feeling? How do I get there again? And the feeling itself is something that I can only describe as knowing that all is well. And I will tell you that after personally coaching thousands of people from Wall Street to Main Street, I've discovered that I'm not alone. Most people just want to feel that feeling like all is well. And I think that that's the most important thing for me in my life now, is assisting people like your listeners, me, you, whoever cares, whoever's interested in getting to this place where your mind is no longer bothering you and bugging you with all of its whining and moaning and complaining and judging and assessing and evaluating. And for me, at about age 36, my mind went completely quiet. And it's been quite an adventure ever since.
So explain to me quiet when you say it went completely quiet. But I want to backtrack a little bit. You said at age 9, you felt a little different. What did you do with that? Because I believe in, you're familiar with indigo children who have these special gifts. Before we jump into like what happened at 36, what did you do with the information that you had? Because I know at 9 years old, brother, I was out playing baseball. I think I might've liked some girls. I'm not sure. I was out just hanging out with my mother. So my mind was in a different place. What did you do with the information? And did you have the vocabulary, the spiritual or the vocabulary to articulate what was going on in your mind? And then who did you share that with?
So first of all, great question. I was 9. I didn't understand. I didn't have the vocabulary. I couldn't figure out what was going on. But I was having these moments where I felt like I was floating 100 feet above my body, and there was so much bliss. And then I would come back into my body, and I would burst into tears and want to be back there again. But who do you talk to? Who do who do you have that conversation with? The answer is no one. And so I was one of those weird kids who started reading the Bhagavad Gita, and at 13 I decided to go get my first communion, and I started to read different books that I was finding that like intrigued me, and I did that all through my teens. But not only that, but I was also a singer-songwriter and musician, and so I was looking for God in all the wrong places: sex, drugs, rock and roll, being a rock star. I mean, I literally tried to turn over every stone looking for, like, where is that feeling again? Being on stage in front of thousands of people, getting all of this adoration, and yet feeling alone, not experiencing that state that was so compelling to me. And it wasn't really until my 30s that I began to apply some of my life experience to solving this problem. What is the specific way in which I could get myself back to that feeling on a regular basis? And here we are today.
It's interesting. And I'm so glad that you're being transparent. So many artists, and I'm an artist, my children are artists, we look for this level of nirvana, enlightenment in synthetic products, be it drugs, be it TV, sex, food, all of these other things that really take us down a different road. And to hear you say, I was looking for it in all these, it's funny because I was thinking of you, I don't know, I was thinking of the song, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. As you were saying that song was going on in my mind. And then, but when did it just like click? Like, you know what? This is it. This is the path that I want to go. Because I know many of us are at crossroads. My friend Common, who I grew up with, he's an hip hop artist. And Common has this great line. He says, I came to a fork in the road, so I went straight. And I thought that was so prophetic. So you were there. Then was it what was that moment? Was it something that was said to you, something that was heard to you? Like, I need to move forward, because I go to many spiritual teachers and all of them have said to me that you've always been searching. You've been a very spiritual kid. My mother said she came into a room one day and I had my hand on the TV and it was like, feed the children. I was praying, I guess, for these children. And I asked, and then I remember I sent some money, said, you can send money in. It's only a penny a day. So Matthew, what do you think I sent in? I mailed a freaking penny, man. A penny, because that's what they said. And my mother said she thought it was, but I don't remember any of that. And she said she knew I was different. And I hear you say different. Different is weird. Hear the word weird, strange. I know we use these words sometimes, but was it a moment that it just clicked and said, this is the direction that I want to go in, and I want to share it with other people, because that love of bliss, that feeling, like drugs, because people typically start with themselves, then they bring other people in it. Was it a moment that she was like, this is where I want to be on this path and bring other people?
Well, I will tell you that it probably was the moment when I was 9, and it never left me. Wow. And at 13 and 14, I was practicing meditation and trying to figure out how to get to that feeling again, and it never stopped. I had this huge advantage. My father is still a personal development guru himself, but is specifically in the real estate industry. And I started working for him when I was young, and he began to expose me to all of his mentors and all the mentors that he wished that he had. And so it just was this accumulation, this buildup, and it was around age 36 that I decided, oh wow, I'm not a success coach. I'm not a teacher of business acumen. Of course, I was doing all of that at that time, but I was really hiding out. And it was at 36 in Tibet, my mind went completely quiet, and I experienced that profound state again, and it stayed. It didn't go. And that was the moment that I began the journey of saying, okay, how do I transform myself from, like this privileged white kid growing up in Orange County who was probably a snot and a snob and arrogant, and how do I begin to move in the direction assisting people in having this experience that I'm having, getting into spiritual teacher mode. And I want to go back, though. I want to go back to this idea of weird and different and all of that. And I'd like to propose to you and to your listeners that there is an evolutionary thing that's occurring right now that I just keep running across. And humans in the past, if we look at Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and all of these people who we look up to as these ascended masters, they were essentially anomalies in human consciousness. They came in this different way, and all the humans around them were like, "Whoa, what is that?" But if you look around today, that anomaly is taking ground in humanity. And while it's a small fraction of us, like you and me and your listeners, it is growing and growing and growing. There are people all over the world who do believe that peace and love and joy and flow and ecstasy and bliss are not only possible, but should in fact be the normal way to live. Like we are a groundswell of a particular kind of human. And it's important, I think, for us to admit that right now we're a small group and we're growing, but we don't need to convert anyone. Evolution is doing that for us. New people are being born all the time who believe the same things we believe.
And I believe that you're courageous enough to do it and bold, because you're working with a clientele, Wall Street. You're working on Wall Street. And typically you don't think of enlightenment, you don't think of spiritual growth, you think of greed. So many of your clients are on Wall Street. How are they using the Rapid Enlightenment Process? First, define the Rapid Enlightenment Process, but then how are they using the Rapid Enlightenment Process to their advantage as well? Because when I think of Wall Street, I'm not thinking spirituality, spiritual growth. That's the judgment. You know, I talk about implicit bias. That's one of my biases. That's not something I sort of put together in the same realm. It's like thinking about Kanye West. And when I think about Kanye West, I don't think about somebody who's not arrogant. Even though I know he's going through some other stuff, I put them together. But Wall Street, spirituality, connection, don't see that. But you took a leap of faith and decided that that's where you want to spend some of your time.
Well, yeah, I think I did, but I think if I'm being honest, Wall Street took a leap of faith on me.
Wow.
And in no way did I decide that I wanted to work on Wall Street. It's just that these individuals they're almost like the wolf in sheep's clothing. They are hiding out amongst the other Wall Street executives and in a lot of ways looking like and smelling like Wall Street people, but in fact are, like you and I, very spiritually inclined and committed and dedicated to feeling peace and flow and love and certainty. But if you look at making profitable investments, logic is the foundation. And emotions blind you to logic. So if you want to figure out where the market is headed, you have to remove the emotional bias. Emotions are one of the body's survival tools. So while emotions are amazing, they're actually very fundamental. And as you move into your enlightened states, you'll find that many of the emotions that you used to have are gone. That there's a prevailing certainty and confidence and love and knowing, but all of the volatility, the up and down, starts to go away as your mind goes quiet. And that really improves your decision making. That massively increases your ability to connect deeply with people, to understand where things are going, to see, to have vision. And so I teach Wall Street executives, I teach entrepreneurs and CEOs to quiet their mind, because it puts them into the present moment and it allows them to use logic and reason and rational thinking rather than being swept away in their crazy emotions that might blind them to opportunities.
And is that your process, that Rapid Enlightenment Process that you use to do that? And how do you engage them with that process?
Well, the Rapid Enlightenment Process is a proven 4-step process. Mm-hmm. And the objective is to get the mind to quiet down, to stop being so worried and stressed out so you can focus on taking actions that matter to you. and to do that while being completely at peace. And the four steps that I have really worked into a system are very simple. One, you got to see that your mind is not your friend. And most of us, we listen to our mind like it's a trusted advisor. But if you really tune in, you will discover that your mind doesn't care about you or your goals or your dreams. Who else calls you fat or stupid or that was dumb or that was an idiotic thing? Who else stresses you out over things that are not really that stressful or even that important? Just your mind. Now, I called the mind, made up a name for my mind when I was young, when I was about 21. I started to call my mind the drunk monkey. And
I've heard of monkey mind. I heard of monkey mind. But
yeah, I was going to say, but my mentors called it the monkey mind. And I was like, well, you know what? I was partying my ass off at the time. And I was like, my mind is
your monkey was
wasted. My mind is like a crazy drunk person. Mm-hmm. And so that stuck. And so from that point on, I just started to call it the drunk monkey. And when you can see it, so awareness makes you flexible. Flexibility reveals new options, and options give you power. So if you can begin to see that you have a mechanism that talks, it's sort of like your GPS system. You don't rely 100% on your GPS system. You're looking around and also understanding where you are contextually in the environment. It's the same thing with your thinking. Your thinking is always trying to move you towards pleasure or away from pain, and it doesn't have all the information, and it really is genetically from your ancestors who lived in a different time. So your mind is not your friend, it's your biology. That's step one. Step two is to recognize the motivation. How is the mind motivated? Why does it talk when I don't ask it to? And it turns out that we have 10 hidden motives to survive: greed, grudge, hatred, victim, illogical rules, humble, traitor, pride, resistance, lazy. These motivations actually spur the thinking on. And when you can begin to identify, again, awareness, when you can identify that this motivation is present, you can choose something different. And the moment you do, boom, your mind goes quiet. Step three is to practice something that I call enlightened perspectives. And enlightened perspectives are so simple. As I don't know if you read what my definition of enlightenment is, but it is the recognition that the source of life for you is the source of life for everyone and everything, that we are all one thing expressing itself with infinite variety. And when you connect with that idea, you have this overwhelming feeling that all is well. And any perspective that generates the experience that all is well is an enlightened perspective. And the interesting thing in my methodology is I studied a man named Dr. David Hawkins, and he wrote a book called Power versus Force. And back in the day, and it was maybe about 1999, we had Wayne Dyer come and speak to our mastermind. And at that time, Wayne basically said, look, you have to read this book. And I'm not a reader, I'm a listener. And there was no audio book. I was like, I don't want to read it. And Wayne's like, no, you must read this book. And I was like, okay. I was young at the time. And so I just took it on and I read the book. It was the first book I ever read twice. And in that book, he described a methodology that he had developed called applied kinesiology. And he applied it to consciousness, measuring consciousness. And over the years, I've begun to utilize that methodology to my advantage. And I've been able to distinguish that there are certain statements that universally cause your body to malfunction and weaken. And there are certain statements or perspectives that you use that universally cause your body to function and be strengthened. And then the most incredible thing happened when the insight appeared that those two things are connected to all is well strengthens you. Anything that implies all is not well weakens you. And when you are strong, there's no need for your mind to talk. Your mind talks because a threat is present. Your mind talks because a threat is present. The only thing is, for you and I, we're not really living in a time where we're threatened. Most people are going to die from what they eat and stress. Heart attack and cancer is going to kill almost everybody. Now we have a pandemic on our hands right now, and that's a unique situation. So there is precaution to take for sure. But most of the situations that we're in are not dangerous. And then there's a fourth step, and that fourth step is something called recontextualization. And that's the skill of shifting your perspective from a survival-based framework that creates stress to an enlightened framework, which acknowledges that all is well. So there's the statements that we know strengthen you, enlightened perspectives, but then there's your everyday language. And in your everyday language, you have to learn this skill to take what you say and shift it ever so slightly so that you're implying that all is well. And as you do that, your mind goes completely quiet. No meditation required.
Wow. So I hear this, but I'm a person who struggle. I'm struggling with what you're saying, not me personally. I'm just saying maybe a listener. And I'm hearing a listener say, Matthew, well, you've been somewhat enlightened since the age of 9. I've been struggling my whole life trying to quiet this mind, be it the monkey mind, the monkey brain, or the drunk monkey brain. What are some things that I can do right now, as soon as I finish listening to this podcast, and you're doing an amazing job? What are some things right now as a listener that I can do to start quieting my mind? Because I want to get to the level of where you are, because at 9, my mind was somewhere else. At 19, my mind was somewhere else. At 36, my mind was somewhere else. But now at 40 years old, I'm ready to take this thing on. I'm very serious. What are some things I can start doing right now?
Well, I'm going to just look into my book, Quiet Mind, Epic Life. And in the back of it, there are 23 practices that people can take on.
Okay.
And if your listener wants to, they can go to my website, matthewferry.com/app, and they can download my free app. And in the app, I take them through the 23 daily practices. It's my gift. One of the most important things to do to get your mind to go quiet is to practice total and complete acceptance of all people in all situations at all times, including yourself. And that's a practice. That's something that you begin to discipline yourself to do. And while meditation is one of my favorite things to do, what I found is that meditation only creates a temporary quiet in the mind. Whereas practicing acceptance, truly understanding and honoring whatever that person is doing, recognizing that everybody's different. Stop holding people accountable to agreements that they never made. Stop holding the world accountable to your opinion and your perspective. No one asked. No one cares. No one cares what you think. And that's not bad. Everybody is self-centered and selfish. That's not bad either. That's called survival. Honor that the vast majority of people in your life are trying to survive in a non-survival situation. And honor that the people in your life are trying to move forward and attain, because they think that attaining will get them to a place of feeling happy and peaceful. Don't make them wrong. Appreciate it. Use appreciation rather than judgment. So what I would recommend that people do. So,
all right, continue. Go ahead.
All right, sorry about that. The joy of Zoom and the internet. Practicing total and complete acceptance is one of the most powerful things you can do. And the way that I do it is I just remind myself, because remembering doesn't work, because to remember, you need to be a member. And what we need to do is we need a reminder. And so I put it in my calendar, and it pops up every day. And every day I have to look at it. I have to think about it. I have to contemplate it. And it is through the contemplation of enlightened perspectives that your mind begins to quiet down. So you practice total and complete acceptance of all people in all situations at all times, including yourself. The other thing that I would recommend that your listener takes on is the recognition that breakdown and breakthrough are the same thing. at different places in the timeline, that breakdown must occur, and that you want to begin to embrace breakdown and recognize that my goals, like the things that I want to accomplish and achieve, are nothing more than a series of well-managed breakdowns that bring me to this place. And the moment I achieve the new state is the moment that my creative mind says, okay, well, what's the next thing? You're going to be climbing that ladder your entire life. You're going to be dead, and your to-do list will be long. You're never going to be complete. So being at peace, or honoring, accepting that you will never be complete, being at peace with that breakdown and destruction are the path. This is how evolution is evolving. It is through these iterations that come up and fail and get dominated by the status quo. And the new iteration comes up and the status quo gets dominated by it and grows. It is through this destructive, bubbling, messy way in which you and me and the whole world is living. Embrace the breakdown. Honor and appreciate that all of the negativity and destruction that are happening in the world are exactly what we need to grow to the next level. All the destruction in the world is waking you up. Thank God. Thank God for the breakdown. Embrace it today. Those are the two things that I would recommend.
I love acceptance and embrace. And I'm glad that you referenced your book, because it's a great tool. I want you guys to pick up the book. But since you're talking about the book, the subtitle of your book, and you alluded to this just right now when you wrapped up, the subtitle of your book is Escape the Status Quo and Experience Enlightened Prosperity Now. What do you actually mean by enlightened prosperity now?
Well, let's talk about the status quo first. So the status quo, start a family, have babies, try and retire, gather up stuff, implement greed, protect what you have, grab what you can. These are status quo. Look good to all the people who don't care. Try to put on a show and have everybody think you're amazing, even though inside you feel insecure.
Yes.
That's the status quo. So the objective is to rise above that. And the way that you rise above that is you activate the idea that all is well. And when you activate that idea, which is an active process, your mind goes quiet. And when you enter into the present moment, you are overwhelmed by the beauty and the amazing nature of life. It blows you away. And you can't believe that you used to live your life with so much fear and stress and anxiety from what now appears to be an illusion, a set of false beliefs. And that context of knowing that all is well, which is an enlightened perspective, activates your inner resources. You become courageous, creative. You become direct, empowered, deliberate. You no longer put up with being treated poorly. You no longer put up with being taken advantage of. It doesn't mean you're being destructive, but suddenly your ability to put up your own personal barriers and declare dominion over your experience is massively enhanced. You don't feel like you have to fit in anymore. You don't feel like you have to please other people to get what you want. You see things as they are. You recognize your own value. And that really activates the Latin root of the word prosperous, which just means that you're doing well. So enlightened prosperity is the idea that you know that all is well and that you're doing well. And that's a really peaceful place to be.
I told you, Sound Bombers, that my friend Matthew Ferry was going to bring it, and he did. Didn't let us down. I need you all to go check out his book, Quiet Mind, Epic Life. Matthew, how can our listeners get in contact with you, and how can they pick up a copy of your book? And then we want you to leave us with the final statement.
I think that the most important thing they can do is go to my website, matthewferry.com/app. and grab my my app and start to leverage all of my free tools. If that's inspiring to them, then they want to pick up my book. You can get my book on Amazon.com. And I want to leave you with this quote, and this is actually from the back of my book, and that is that enlightenment is not a place, it's not a destination, it's a state, it's a point of view, it's a contextual framework that makes living an epic life possible. Now, enlightenment is the recognition that the source of life for you is the source of life for everyone and everything. We are all one thing, expressing itself with infinite variety. And when you truly see that you are the source of life and the source of life is you, and that's all you're experiencing, it is in that moment that you enter into a blissful, enlightened state.
Wow. Well, thank you, Matthew. But don't leave yet. This is the second part of the show and my favorite part because I get a chance to ask questions that my listeners always send in. And I typically ask all the guests this. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go, man. When you're ready, you don't have to get ready. That's what they say. What's your favorite word?
Let's say that my favorite word is acceptance.
Okay. What's your favorite quote? Now, you just gave a powerful quote, but do you have a different quote that might be favorite, maybe a favorite?
Yeah, I think probably my favorite quote is, wherever you go, there you are.
Yes. What is your superpower?
I would say that my superpower is probably kindness.
What's your spirit animal?
My spirit animal is going to be the hawk.
What brings you to tears of joy?
America's Got Talent.
What moves you? What moves you to tears of sorrow?
Tears of sorrow. When people illogically believe that they're alone.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
I wish that I don't know. I'm actually doing everything that I want to do, but I do love writing songs, and so that would probably be top of my list.
All right. What is the best or most worthwhile investment you've ever made? It could be an investment of money, time, energy, etc.
I think that there are two components. The first one is my investment in my own inner development. And then the second one is a component of my inner development, which is financial intelligence.
What's your morning routine?
My morning routine is to get up, to read a morning script that I wrote for myself. So I've written a script that is basically like my morning pep talk. Then I read a statement about integrity and what integrity is and how to implement it in my life. Then I read my company mission statement, and then I read my 2020 intentions, which is 2020 at the time of our recording. Then the next thing that I do is go into a meditative state, and I just look for any place in which my mind thinks that we are at risk, and I recontextualize those things so that I know that all is well, and then I'm off to the races.
If you were in a Mr. America talent competition, what would your talent be? Since you said you love America's Got Talent, what would your talent be?
My talent would be having people know that all is well.
Wow. All is well. I appreciate that statement. Matthew, thanks for joining me in the Bombshell today. It has been a blessing. I bring so many people on the show, but man, let me just tell you, this is the first time I'm literally taking copious notes. I am writing and writing. Cannot wait to go back to rewind this. So, Matt, I want to thank you for joining me today, man. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks a lot.
Rock on, man. Thanks for having me.
I also want to thank my amazing engineer, my Haitian brother, Alexander Blanc, my amazing producer. Could not do this without you, Nicole Klempaka. Of course, our music brought to you by Supremacy, and all of you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, go leave a comment, go somewhere and leave a comment. Let people know what you're learning. And we love you, and you can't do nothing about it. If you want to know more about me, if you want to pick up my shirt, the Ubuntu line, You can go to drdrlds.com. And as always, believe something wonderful is about to happen. And that some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess. Thanks for tuning in, and do something for someone other than yourself today. And we're going to wrap up our show with a song written and performed by our guest, Matthew Ferry. Peace.
Wake up, fog in your eye, get in your box, do it again. Good night, the mind is alive, looping the scenes that you wish you were in. Tick-tock, the clock never stops, every day you're taking steps toward your grave. That's life. Hello, goodbye. Life is short and it's